Good morning.
Good morning. How's it going?
Oh, good. Now I have to see what you are intrigued by and
Harry
infatuated
Potter.
by. Harry
I see a lot of
Potter.
Harry Potter.
What else you
I
got?
love these. Oh, this side. Sorry. Beautiful illustrated versions, but I have an eclectic collection of all 10,000 versions of the Ben Horowitz first book, Hard Thing About Hard Things. Highly recommended for any founder.
So you just hand those out? Is that your
Back in the day, yeah, I was
okay.
just like, hey, walk in, grab one off the shelf. Like it's a great book to have. I was part of a group house down in Palo Alto for many years, and just literally had our favorite books in many copies worth to try and seed them into more minds.
Such an SF thing. I love it.
Yeah, seriously.
Especially that book.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like, here's our Bible. It's like, okay.
Oh,
Um,
also Idea Factory, I would say, was even more the Protocol Labs Bible of thinking about how you craft institutions like Bell Labs that are able to really innovate in R&D.
yeah, two books. I think I was on the receiving end of the Ben Horowitz book at one point. I think talking to a mentor, and he's like, just read this book.
Worth doing.
Okay.
Worth doing.
Okay.
Amazing.
Let us, we can get pulled into a million other things, and maybe we will. We'll see where the conversation goes. But I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the company name right.
FilOz.
So I definitely wasn't. Yeah. Well, you're gonna need some phonetics over top of that brand, I think.
True.
Like FilOz, maybe. I like the ounce and stuff.
Yeah,
like
well, we use Phil a lot in the Filecoin ecosystem. There's Phil Builders, Phil Ponto, FilOz, and we like to pretend the Oz is for open source, but it's not. It's because both my co-founder and I had cats named Ozzy. So we just got attached to the name and couldn't.
Let's go with the cat thing. That makes a lot more sense.
It's the truth.
I mean, I think I think everybody listening probably has heard of Filecoin. I think few of us probably know exactly what is going on there. I think in my mind, Filecoin is sort of this protocol and I guess a series of other products that have emerged from it alongside an incubator and this sort of ecosystem approach people are taking. And yet right now, I'm not sure if I really know what is actually happening there.
And so when we had opportunity,
opportunity to chat with you is sort of like getting a check-in on what's happening over there. And then I'm assuming like the thing that you are focused on specifically is maybe a representative of that strategy and momentum from the Filecoin ecosystem. So start wherever makes sense.
Yeah. So maybe for those who don't know, Filecoin is a decentralized storage network that's blockchain powered. We've just celebrated our 5th birthday of the Filecoin mainnet. So we've been around for a while, an OG in this ecosystem. And for the past 5 years, we've been building the largest decentralized storage network out there. We have about 2 exabytes of data stored on the Filecoin network right now, which is large. We're talking about exabytes, not gigabytes, terabytes, kilobytes, any of those things. And we've really geared ourselves for being kind of like a fundamental large-scale storage network. But one of the friction points of the Filecoin ecosystem from early days was in order to have the proof of replication that allowed us to validate that every bit of data and capacity that was coming into the Filecoin network was unique and individual. It had kind of a slow onboarding process, which we called sealing, which allowed us to prove these different bits. And that meant Filecoin kind of was used more in an archival capacity as kind of a cold proof system. And over the past year, we have brought a new hot storage proof to Filecoin, which we call proof of data possession, which can, in the future be intermixed with our proof of replication to have both cold and hot storage, multiple different storage tiers. And around that new hot proof, we have built a new kind of storage market and ecosystem that we're calling the Filecoin on-chain cloud. And this is kind of bringing Filecoin all the way to what a Web3 developer needs in order to build a DePIN network over top, build on-chain dApps, interface kind of directly with Filecoin's proofs and smart contracts. About 2 years ago, in March 2023, if I'm getting my years right, everything here is in dog years. We launched the Filecoin virtual machine, which is a fully EVM compatible smart contract layer in Filecoin. And over the past year, we've been using it to make all of the storage proofs in Filecoin composable and programmable so that not just us, but any developer can go and start programming and remixing around these storage proofs. And we've used it to build a new kind of real-time marketplace in Filecoin using a couple of kind of core building blocks. We now have smart contracts that define your storage service. We have a new payment mechanism, which allows for kind of real-time billing based on the quality of service being offered by a storage provider. And we have this global network of thousands of storage providers that we're bringing online within this system and expanding over the next couple of years. And so this trajectory has really been, Filecoin built the largest decentralized storage system. We brought our kind of virtual machine to make it more programmable and composable. And now we've been working within that programmable environment to go all the way to the Web3 builder. We've built kind of a really, put, get, easy SDK that Web3 developers can interact with. We built a kind of a connector system to IPFS. So anyone who's using IPFS, which also is kind of the core building blocks that the Filecoin network was built on top of from day zero, can very easily just push IPFS files or archive data into a Filecoin storage provider and then serve it back from them directly without any central intermediary points. Kind of our core mission from day zero was like, it's so critical to have infrastructure and a resilient network without centralized points of failure. Literally on the day that we were launching the Filecoin on-chain cloud at DevConnect in Buenos Aires, Cloudflare went down. And so pretty much everyone else had to cancel their live demos because they're like, well, the internet gods have, centrally pulled the plug on all of our infrastructure. And we were just fine because we were using all of these decentralized components. We're able to do our live demo on stage, like take a picture of the audience and show it back working. And so that kind of like shift for our infrastructure, we think is a really critical building block for people that are building dApps, but also especially as we start having trustless agents operating with blockchains and with decentralized data sets. We really need that trust and that resiliency more than ever.
Yeah, when you kind of position this to the market, is it, the AWS competitor? Is it, you should be using both, but if you're using AWS, you should have resiliency on Filecoin. Like, how do you position this for?
Ironically, our original name for this was FWS. And we iterated a little bit. We're like, oh, we don't necessarily want to put the same competitiveness versus a behemoth. We are building something that is kind of uniquely different and has kind of its own benefits. And there can totally be use cases where you compose the two. But if you put all of your eggs in the AWS basket, then if AWS goes offline, that is a centralized system and you've put all of your eggs in a single centralized basket. When you're operating in Filecoin land, we have replication across a global community of storage providers. You just have a much more resilient system that you're working within, and you're able to kind of compose, replicate, repair your data in kind of a much more heterogeneous environment. And so that we think this is a clear choice for anyone who's building in Web3 today already. Like if you're building with smart contracts and the Uniswap front ends of the world, like it is a huge failure point if you're not working with this. We actually worked with the ENS and SAFE teams so that every DeFi front end can now use decentralized storage, and you can also use multi-sig wallets so that you can avoid having kind of the centralized rug pulls on updating a front end, which we've seen kind of used in a couple of hacks over the past couple of years. And so we think this is a clear choice in that environment. If you're operating kind of, and you don't want that centralized behemoth lock-in, where you don't want to necessarily be trusting AWS with all your data, or you just don't want to be choosing a single failure point, then you should absolutely be composing the two. And Filecoin is actually very competitive from a cost perspective. And so you can do that even in an environment that gives you cost savings.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like everybody is probably trying to de-risk their storage and providers, especially, I mean, even just
in the era of AI, like data is just exploding. There's so much data being collected. We work a lot with the BitRobot team, who's doing embodied AI data collections, and it's truly mass amount of data. Folks in the neurotech realm as well are starting to collect hours and hours of behavioral video data about all sorts of combined with implantation data and imaging of brain scans. Like, here's a massive amount of data being collected in order to kind of scale up these AI training workloads that people want to do. So the compute demands are high, the storage demands are even higher, and we think we need a resilient substrate for all of this data to be stored in ways that's not going to either fall prey to a central failure point, but can also keep up with the level of demand that we're putting on it.
Are there cost or speed trade-offs today that are making this kind of more aligned for people who are I guess, ideologically aligned with Filecoin, or do we exist in a world where the tech is here and there's really no need to use AWS?
Yeah, I think probably the tooling is has actually been the biggest bottleneck. Is like, oh well, everything already interfaces and works with it. It's most effective for folks that are getting started today or are already having interfaces on kind of the Web3 side, because Filecoin is just very well connected to all of the toolkits that people want to use. Where if you're using kind of Snowflake or something like that, there is now a group in the Filecoin ecosystem called Akave that has built connectors and toolkits for Snowflake and Apache, various different like storage software connectors. But that, I would say, is probably the biggest bottleneck for large scale enterprises to come and start using this seamlessly in their workloads. Kind of you start from the baseline of like getting everything fully decentralized from the ground up and provable and on chain, and then you build nice SDKs, and then you build like easy to use tools for people. We have a GitHub action that allows you to store your website seamlessly on IPFS and Filecoin, and you kind of like work your way up then to all of the larger scale kind of like infrastructure and tooling connections. And we've been working and have a number of what we call on-ramps, or kind of like Filecoin ecosystem partners, Sriracha, Akave, Lighthouse, a number of others that have built kind of more specialized toolkits and interfaces to bring data into the Filecoin ecosystem. But I would say that's probably where the biggest, holdup is from kind of a price competitive perspective. Most folks are offering about $5 per terabyte per month for replicated robust storage, which is very cost competitive to all of the other storage mediums. I think the kind of biggest hurdle is bringing that and making it like, a completely native accessible choice in all of the tools that are being used in broader enterprise environments.
So 5 years of sort of a big vision, and then aggressively trying to ensure that the infrastructure, the tools, the pieces that make this sort of tech usable by a broader and broader market. I'm curious how the applications or the products that are integrating this have changed over the last couple of years or even couple of months. Like, what is enabled now? What are people building that has you excited and maybe showcases the full value of Filecoin?
Totally. I feel like it's been building, alongside this whole ecosystem has changed so much in the last 5 years. And I think in a lot of healthy ways, like we're building applications and use cases that are usable by the end person, that are solving real needs that people have on a day-to-day environment. And so we have folks that we've been building with for, a long time, like the ENS folks that have been, looking at this. And we used that literally during the Cloudflare outage. We were using ENS as a way to access our websites while the Cloudflare DNS was down. So that was a perfectly resilient hand-in-hand collaboration. Some of the new stuff we're seeing built, there's a DocuSign alternative where your data is kind of fully yours and encrypted. You can do your own kind of like DocuSign records and have your history of all of the kind of contracts you've signed or agreements you've made. There's a really interesting team that's working with the Filecoin Foundation that has built a kind of way to bounty and record all of the data that's happening in kind of like FIPS or EIP processes. So that's kind of all fully accessible and offline and capable to be used by anyone. Even if GitHub, say, as a central point of failure went down, we would still be able to keep iterating on new improvement proposals kind of within a separate storage environment. And we've also seen a lot of folks that are, building dApps that are just more usable to the end customer and have much larger data scale. So that's folks that are doing large scale. We have like the Kive network, for example. They're storing all of the data from Celestia Story Protocol and are looking at even larger blockchain ecosystems on Filecoin, because here, we're starting to get to the scale of data in the Web3 ecosystem that kind of talks to the 2 exabytes of data that's stored in Filecoin already. You have Solana that's storing, hundreds of terabytes per year today in like the amount of chain data that's being generated. And so when you put that data in decentralized storage and you start making it accessible to anyone who wants to resync the blockchain or run a full node without having to locally store and like literally have 300 terabytes per year of the Solana network being around, like that makes a big difference. We're starting to get to like this collaborative storage environment over top of these collective data sets. And so I'm really, really interested in people who start using this more in the AI space, but also in kind of this collaborative data commons environment. We've worked with a couple of groups that are doing this for women's health data, where this has historically been kind of underrepresented in our data analysis of, is this going to be the right dosage for this medicine, or what happens when, this subset of people participate in the study. And so now we have large scale communities that are collaboratively sharing their data and starting to use that to then run studies or run AI learning algorithms on top of a much more broad scale corpus of data. I think this is going to be a really interesting space where you, again, this is kind of how the Bit Robot network is working, where they have many different subnets for many different robot types, where one is doing like, fine-tune finger manipulation, and the other one is a full humanoid, and the other one is like little robots driving around in, various different parts of the world. And then they're able to bring those data sets together and, compose, fine-tune, customize those data sets, sell them to different folks that want to train algorithms over top of them. And so I think there's going to be a really, really interesting world here as more and more of these kind of like decentralized agent environments or decentralized agent data sets come online, where that becomes kind of a growing component within this Web3 space, where again, our DePIN networks, like the technology that we've built here, is really optimized for creating a collaborative environment where many different agents are contributing to an overall set and getting rewarded for their contributions. And so we're starting to work with a number of folks, both on the data side and on the compute side, that are doing that kind of trustless agent data storage and model build out. And so that's a new thing that definitely wasn't really on the horizon when Filecoin first went to mainnet 5 years ago.
The robots are here.
Yeah.
I am very curious. I mean, you are probably the most passionate individual about storage that I've ever talked to. It's coming through and everything you do here. I'm curious why you've decided this is sort of the place to invest your talents and abilities.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was first bitten by this when I was working in education tech at Google, actually, and I was doing all of the stuff to bring teacher and student assignment workloads online and enable everyone to have devices to turn in their homework. And then I suddenly realized that the internet in schools was really sucky, and you needed to be able to have kind of a more flexible substrate for how we were communicating, so that students could turn in their assignment to a teacher without having to send it to Google.
From
so
that K to 12
get
classroom into
right,
crypto,
like that was my that was my hook into this kind of like local first, more permissive internet, right? That would enable direct connections between individuals, where you weren't subject to having to put all of your data in central silos. And honestly, back in the 2016 era with Cambridge Analytica, that was also a big like, hold on, they're building up these massive centralized data sets. How do those get used? How do you end up being manipulated by the data that's there? So like that for me was my seed, where I ended up jumping into and seeing the opportunities in decentralized technologies of, hey, well, I can own my own data while still contributing it to useful causes. I can put my data in a more kind of self-sovereign storage system that isn't just sending it to AWS and trusting them not to run their own compute workloads over my data or whatever it is. And I think that also really keeps up with what is the scale of storage that we're going to need to make sure that we can scale the science that can and will be done over the next 5 years in a way that doesn't end up with all of the gains and all of the value being captured by a few hyperscalers, and instead puts the capability and value in the hands of the people who are doing that work. I think we need storage networks and compute networks that aren't going to, kind of end up with the Facebook of science, but ending with all of that data and all of that infrastructure being trapped in central silos. I think having something that is more open, that is more empowering of the individual, and that enables groups to also like own the work they're doing. Like one of the key primitives that we used with the Filecoin on-chain cloud was like, these should be like smart contracts. You should be able to fork them, compose them, build your own, iterate around them, and like you might have different needs around your storage system. You shouldn't be subject to someone else changing the API on you or changing the cost structure on you. You should be able to kind of iterate within this open environment and own your own data, own your own kind of like interface to that storage system, and choose your own providers. And again, that level of openness is all composable code and proofs in a blockchain network instead of being locked behind closed doors and an API and a billing system that you can't introspect into. And so again, I think that primitive of openness and ownership is actually a really valuable building block in this kind of scaling ecosystem.
I'm interested in how the economic model of the network works and if that's evolved at all over the last 5 years, or if it needs to evolve looking forward to the next kind of 5 to 10.
Yeah, so Filecoin has always been kind of like a core infrastructure network and building block. There have been some critical innovations though. For example, we're now using a stable coin, which is called USDFC, which we use for storage yield payments. One of the things previously our hypothesis was we're gonna pay for storage in FIL. But as people have found with many DePIN networks, having a volatile asset that you're using to pay for a commodity is complicated, and that was not great for storage providers. It wasn't great for clients. So now you can do normal USD-based monthly billing using this stablecoin, but the stablecoin is backed by FIL. So in order to lock your data in these, or lock your funds in kind of your next 30 days of billing cycle, you're also taking FIL out of circulation in order to support that currency you're using. We've also over time added kind of value accrual or value alignment fees in the network. They're small, kind of in the same way that when you're using a DEX or similar, there's kind of a small percentage within that market that is going into kind of the core protocol itself for offering you this like market matchmaking service. And so we have that in the Filecoin network for both the core storage proofs that you're using, but also the kind of deals that are flowing through that marketplace. And so those are kind of core innovations to connect the overall growth of volume in the Filecoin kind of like deal-making network and marketplace to the core, crypto economics of the network value itself. A key component for Filecoin that definitely is a component that has stayed from the beginning of the network to now is that Filecoin is a key component that's locked in order to kind of guarantee the service quality of a deal. We have collateral that's associated with data stored in the network that can be slashed if a provider is found to not be kind of like behaving correctly based on the on-chain proofs that they're submitting. And so that also has been a key component of making sure that there's this key backing of the service with the kind of Filecoin token as well. And so that continues to be a key and valuable part that as you scale, more data stored on the network, more providers storing data, more clients paying for that data, that will also scale as well. But I think a key component we've added here is that the more valuable the storage network is and how much, say ARR is flowing through the on-chain deals, which again, if you have a very smooth user experience of using those on-chain deals with things like stable coins and monthly billing, it's way easier to interface with that on-chain market, that will also kind of have a key value accrual back to the network. And so those are kind of a couple of changes that have, I think, aim to better align both, the value creation within this ecosystem and real utility that's being generated by clients and storage providers with the growth of the network and the economy as well.
All right, Molly, you've been very generous with your time here.
Absolutely. It's been fun to chat with you guys.
Yeah, it is. Filecoin, it was sort of this, I think just came out just as we were starting Seed Club. So I got to sort of see it from, the big launch and then into sort of like oh shit, we got to go build more stuff and figure out where this lands. And I haven't really checked in recently.
Yeah, well, we've been working hard, and I think we're at a point where now kind of like, your average user, myself included, again, I did it literally on stage in a DevConnect demo of like, let's just all take a selfie and store it on Filecoin within seconds. And I think that to me is just like, as someone who was playing around with trying to store Filecoin deals 5 years ago, this is a huge step forward in terms of just accessibility, like the developer utility. And I think it's perfectly timed because, what I see in Web3 is that our demand for storage and data is just growing immensely quickly, faster and faster. And so it's really good that we have the decentralized storage tools to keep up with it.
yeah, I mean, I have a blog that I wrote back in 2009 that is just no longer here with us anymore. And the fact that there is no permanence in this digital world, I think is another one of those sort of fundamental like aha moments people come across, maybe hopefully not too late.
Yeah.
Like the genius is still in here somewhere. I'm sure I could recreate it at some point.
Prompt the
the
AIs.
naivete was a
I
little bit
once wrote a
different back then.
blog post.
Yeah.
Can you find it?
Yeah, exactly. All right,
Well,
Molly. Well,
what's the best dashboard to kind of track the growth of the network?
I would really, for the new components, if you look at filecoin.cloud, that's going to lead you into all of the kind of new tooling. There's a Filecoin Pay dashboard where you can look at the payments that are flowing through the system. We're still on calibration net now. That's our test net. We're going to be going to mainnet in January. But that's kind of where you can see
test net.
Thank you. It was very useful. We calibrated a lot in the early days and still have for the last 5. But so that's a great place to see all of the new things with Filecoin on-chain cloud. Also, if you're a builder or developer and want to jump in, that's a great place to start. For the overall network, we call it numbers. It's numbers.filecoindataportal.xyz. A little bit of a long one, but that has like all of the graphs on, KPIs, how many sectors have been stored. And so that has all of the mainnet stuff. It doesn't yet have any of the Filecoin on-chain cloud stablecoin deal payments yet, but it will in the future as soon as we bring that to mainnet.
We like a lot of graphs.
This is good. This is a good.
So
this is exactly what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
Epic. Well, there you go. We've got you all of the data, and you can play around with it. Masari also does really awesome quarterly reports on Filecoin, and they do a good job kind of highlighting the key trends that are new in that particular quarter.
Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I mean, we'll probably have to check back in at some point in the future. And
Very much. Yeah, we'll chat more in January when we're on mainnet and have even more things to share.
Awesome. Thanks, Molly.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
Peace.
Thanks, guys.